I think quarterback will be top 15, but I don't think it's. I think it could be.
I mean, okay, hang on. Ow! Ladies and gentlemen, for the trollers,
I'm Wes Selby.
Ladies and gentlemen, the trollers, welcome back to For the Troll Fantasy, the most entertaining fantasy football podcast on the planet. I'm Noah Selby, that's Wes Selby, and we've got an injury buyback episode for you guys today. Dude, I was so committed. I was so committed that it was going to be such a smooth, good bit, and I lost it about approximately 0.5 seconds after I did it. So
it was incredible.
And we're not lying when we say most entertaining fantasy podcast on the planet, I guess.
Oh my
goodness. Welcome back. God. It's going to be a great episode. We like we mentioned in this midst of all this laughter, we're talking about injured players who are returning in 2024. It's going to be a great one. Stay tuned. We're going to tell you about a guy who might be able to come back from yet another catastrophic injury and be impactful for sure. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Wes, you good? This is already going so well. So
I recouped. Yeah, I've got tears in my eyes from laughing at that. And some of these players are going to win. Are going to win you your fantasy championship. I believe that for a couple of these guys, and some of these players, I believe we're both going to agree, stay away from. We'll talk about that. How are you?
Great. I'm healed now from my injury, and so I'm good to go. I'm ready to rock and roll. It's going to be a great time.
Oh, good. Yeah, from the injury you just had like 2 minutes ago?
Yeah, remember when I went, ow? Remember when I did that?
Oh.
Yeah.
No. When was that?
2 minutes ago. Listen, make sure you're following us on our socials because we're always putting content out there. It's always a fun time. Make sure you are a part of our Discord community. You can access that through our Patreon. We're also giving away a signed, autographed, certified, pen to jersey, autographed James Cook jersey, just to tell you what autographs mean. Make sure you join our Patreon to do that. You got to beat us in fantasy football, but you can't. But I bet you want to, and you want to try. So that's all linked down in our bio below. Subscribe, like, and ring the bell. And Wes, there's a little bit of news before we jump into our 2024 injury buyback. What's the news?
You better pour yourself a large, tall glass of your favorite liquid to get through this hefty news segment. First things first, Robert Tonyan signed with the Vikings. Second thing is Justin Jefferson did not show up to OTAs yesterday, and what we know about CeeDee Lamb as well. Keep an eye out for that. That's it for the news. Yeah. Now, let's talk about injured players and who we're buying back in on.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, that's pretty much it. We're just going to talk about some of these guys that were injured last year. 10 guys that I think can be impactful or not impactful for fantasy football, but that people are talking about that were injured and now they're going to come back. We're just going to break down their outlook, their outcome, what they may be able to do. And let's start it out with a guy that we saw get injured really early last year. Broke my heart. I was all in on this guy. Is Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
And man, I was so excited. I had many shares of Nick Chubb in fantasy. I really was bought in. He came out, had a great week 1, and then week 2, prime time in Pittsburgh. Just a gruesome knee injury.
Was it week 2?
It was that early.
Oh,
it was
my
week
gosh.
2. Yeah.
I thought it was later.
Yeah, it was that early on. Nick Chubb has a history of these knee injuries. He already had one before in college. I see this being... He's a value. I'll say that. He's a value. He's going, I don't know, it's probably in the late 8th, 9th round, something like that. And this is a guy who was going at the 1-2 turn last year. The reports are that this recovery has been very positive for him. But you always got to tread lightly with guys that have these, he like broke his kneecap. He like tore his ACL. It was just, is rough, and I don't think we'll ever get back to the Nick Chubb that we once had before, but I don't think I want anything more out of the NFL season next year than to see how incredible it would be if Nick Chubb goes through this injury. I remember saying that night, I think his career's done. And what if he came back
it was
and he led the league in rushing? Like, what if? What if? But I don't know if I'll be drafting him fantasy wise.
I don't think I will draft him. It is the condition that we've seen with other players who are of the caliber of Nick Chubb that could be a top 5 player in their position. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to have them for the first several weeks, if not several months of the season. And you basically sacrifice a bench spot to start out your fantasy year. And that's always difficult. We've seen that with guys who were suspended as well. I remember when DeAndre Hopkins was suspended and people were drafting him in the 10th round. And at that time, he was still like a clear top 10 wide receiver. And when he came back, he was phenomenal. And it was the risk people took. People did that with Jonathan Taylor last year as well. And he came back and he was great. So it's the risk. But for me, I'm not going to risk it because I still think where his ADP is, are wide receivers that I think can provide better value in the end. And it's a kind of injury, as you pointed out, that you do not fully recover. And he's already done this before. It's hard. Yeah. I love the guy, but yeah, I'm gonna stay away, I think.
Rooting hard for him, but it's gonna be tough to draft him in fantasy for sure. Let's jump up here to our first wide receiver on this list. It's Tank Dell, a guy that I'm a big fan of, been no secret. Tank Dell broke his ankle down the line last season. I think it was around week 15 or 16. I don't know. Just guessing. Just doing a little guesstimation here. I believe it was in around that time, but I think it was before the fantasy playoffs. So I think it was maybe week 14.
Let me see if I can find it while you.
He was a breakout last year. It was big rookie star. Made a lot of week winning performances. I'm all in. I am. I think he is. We've talked about it before. The Texans wide receiver room. When it comes to these guys, we don't know who's gonna be the guy who's gonna be the best out of all of them, and you just got to call your shot. And I'm gonna call my shot on the guy who's the cheapest, and that's gonna be Tank Dell. So, along with that, paired with CJ Stroud, loves him. I think he's going to be a great addition. I think he's going to be a really solid wide receiver 2 with maybe some wide receiver 1 upside. So that's where I'm at on Tank Dell, Wes. I don't know if you have similar feelings or if you're just really just fully out on the Texans wide receiver room or what.
I'm almost fully out on the Texans wide receiver room because of it's a shot in the dark. And as we said, Tank Dell is the most affordable, and Tank Dell is second-year wide receiver, and I like his plain simple. I like his youth. He has a chance to still be in his prime.
Yeah.
Where Stephon Diggs is beyond his prime, and Nico Collins probably just had his prime season. So I like that upside more. I'm willing to take a shot on him, but it would need to be. I would rather have him at the end of the 4th round for his ADP is right now.
Sure.
And from what I can find, as you're talking, it looked like he played 11 games. In his 11th game, he got injured. So
okay, cool.
Maybe 12, 13 weeks in. So it was right before fantasy playoffs. But
there's been a clip that surfaced just this past week of him working out, running full speed, cutting in and out of breaks. Obviously, this happens all off season with like every player that gets hurt. We're all like, "Oh, he's back," and then we obviously have to temper expectations. Just think about chicken tenders, dude. Anyway, let's
when are we not, dude? When are we not talking about chicken tenders, dude?
Let's jump into the next guy here, Keenan Allen, who got hurt. Maybe. Dude, I'm still not sure actually what happened. I think he maybe had like a sore hamstring and then was like, oh, it's Easton Stick. It hurts, coach. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know what this was.
3 games left. Yeah, I can't play.
I don't know. It was hard to look at because Keenan Allen, the guy that I had on a lot of teams last year, I loved him. But if this was an injury, coming off an injury, although I've heard like nothing in the offseason about like he's recovering really well from his injury, which leads me to believe that it wasn't an injury. Like, I don't know what happened. I really don't. But this paired with going to a new team, new situation. He's got a year left on his contract with the Bears. If I'm gonna buy in on a receiver here for Chicago, I think it's gonna be DJ Moore. And I don't know. It's again just a lot of mouths to feed plus rookie quarterback. But Wes, is there something I'm missing with Keenan Allen where I should be a lot higher on him? I mean, I love him, but like fantasy?
I don't think you're missing anything. I'm 100% with you that DJ Moore is the wide receiver to get this season. It's possible that Rome Odunze has some wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2 upside at the end of the year. Yeah. I think it's possible Keenan Allen has a few games or a couple of games that are better than DJ Moore, but I think DJ Moore is the clear best Bears wide receiver for this season. And I think DJ Moore is very likely to be top 15. And I do not think Keenan Allen has any. He's certainly not going to be wide receiver 2 on my team. So yeah, I don't think you're missing anything. I am not buying in on Keenan Allen.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Wes, I want you to lead me off here with this next guy. It's Mark Andrews. And I know you've got some feelings about a guy that might play a little closely with Mark Andrews. Are we buying back on Mark Andrews after this injury? He was pushing to make a playoff appearance. I can't actually remember if he made it back in the playoffs. I think he made, like, not fantasy playoffs, I'm just saying NFL playoffs, because they extended their season by 3 games. I know that when Lamar threw that dumb interception, it was to Isaiah Likely. So I actually can't remember if Mark Andrews played the playoffs. I'm going to look for that. Tell me about if we're buying back in on Mark Andrews.
Well, you've just mentioned Isaiah Likely, and that is why I'm not buying back in on Mark Andrews, because we've seen Isaiah Likely another season before last year have fill in for Mark Andrews excellently. He was very impressive. And I have said multiple times, Isaiah Likely could be a starter on multiple teams. And I think it's undeniable now to the Ravens and the Ravens offense that Likely should be more featured in this offense, especially with what feels like one wide receiver on that team. It's basically just Zay Flowers. And I know they like some of their other guys that are there. But I think Nelson Aguilar is on that team. I don't know if he's still there. It was last year.
They just drafted Devontae Walker, who it's like maybe we see, and Rashad Bateman. Yeah. Rashad Bateman got an extension this offseason, but it's like, okay,
that's our point.
Cool.
It's just Zay Flowers, and Zay Flowers I think is a great pick for fantasy. But I think that does mean that they're going to need to feature and lean more on other players. And of course, Derrick Henry's there, but I think Mark Andrews will be totally healed and perfectly fine coming off the injury. But as far as fantasy, I don't know if he's going to be top 10 actually, because I feel like it's possible Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews compete too much for targets, and Zay Flowers emerges too strongly that he ends up being too far behind on the totem pole of the tight ends that he may not even be top 10.
I need Todd Monken to live up to his name and reputation a little more of being a more pass heavy offense for me to say that I think there's a chance Mark Andrews could not be top 10. I think he still probably lands in there, but I think Isaiah Likely does end up playing a bigger role. I agree with you. I looked it up. Mark Andrews played 31% of the snaps in the AFC Championship, so he wasn't really even fully ready, fully there.
That's right. I can remember him.
He may be there and good to go starting week 1, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think he's just got he's been too much of a key player in this offense for Lamar and his development to to fully disappear, but it's going to be worth monitoring. I definitely believe. So let's jump into, we had a few guys there, and then Wes, there's a lot of quarterbacks here that we're about to jump into. So let's jump into Deshaun Watson.
Oh yeah.
I think he sucks, and I think that this offense was better with Jacoby Brissett playing quarterback and better with Joe Flacco playing quarterback the times that Deshaun Watson had gotten hurt, and at least the skill players in that sense. So injury or not, I don't know if I'm buying back, but I don't think Deshaun Watson's a fantasy relevant quarterback. I don't believe. So
yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while. I think a Cleveland Browns quarterback will be top 15, but I don't think it's Deshaun Watson. I think it could be Jameis Winston.
Okay.
I think let me say, Deshaun Watson has played awful for the Browns. He's played terribly, and his injury history has proven that he won't be able to play all of these games. And depending on how soon Deshaun Watson ends up getting hurt, Jameis Winston, I think, is going to just rocket his way into a top 15. But it's something I've just been thinking about, because if Jameis Winston ends up under center, I absolutely see him being a phenomenal fantasy quarterback with all of those pieces around him. That being said, I think it should go without saying, I'm completely out on Deshaun Watson. I think it's possible Deshaun Watson can lose his job at the end of this season. And I know that's a lot to ask for, but like NFL teams have quickly said, they've realized, okay, we can cut our losses and admit we got it wrong. And I think the Browns can say we got it wrong. So I'm totally out on Deshaun Watson. I do not think he's going to do well for this Browns team. I don't think he's going to do well in fantasy. And I'm praying that Jameis Winston ends up as a starter. And if he does, like Joe Flacco last season, I can roll him out. That's how I feel as of today.
I think I'll give you $230 million if they bench Deshaun Watson for Jameis Winston. I don't think they're in a contract situation to be able to do that. Maybe that's part of what it is, but I don't know. I agree with you, and we're in the same space that these skill players seem to do better when Watson isn't out there. And when it comes to Amari Cooper and maybe Jerry Jeudy emerging, a guy really like David Njoku, I prefer worse quarterbacks who need to maybe find more sure options, and maybe that is the answer. Maybe it's Jameis Winston. I don't know. We'll see. But that's
Didn't Dorian Thompson-Robinson beat the 49ers? Wasn't he the quarterback?
It was him or PJ Walker.
Okay,
but that's the point, though. Yeah.
The team is better without Watson, and for fantasy purposes, everyone is better without Watson.
For fantasy purposes,
either way, no one should draft Watson.
Yeah. Let's jump to Aaron Rodgers here, coming back off of a long season he had last year with 3 plays. But coming off the Achilles that we heard all year, he is trying to come back and play. Okay, cool. What's Aaron Rodgers' ceiling if he's fully recovered from this Achilles and it doesn't hinder him?
I think his ceiling, and by ceiling, I mean ceiling, the very best possible spot for him to finish is QB5. I think that's his ceiling. Okay. I think he could, at the very best, throw for like 4,700 yards and have 40 to 45 touchdowns and only a handful of interceptions. He could have a similar stat line to his MVP years just a few years back. His floor is like QB 20. But
yeah,
it's his floor though. Like, and that's the range. And so Garrett Wilson, I feel comfortable taking. Breece Hall has proven he can be top 5 no matter who his offensive line or quarterback is. So I'm okay with them. But as far as drafting Aaron Rodgers, there are probably 14 other quarterbacks I would much rather have than Aaron Rodgers.
I agree. I don't have much more on that. I think he can support fantasy relevant guys, but I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant himself. That's just where I'm at there with him. Let's jump into this next guy, and it's a guy that a lot of people are talking about right now. It's Justin Herbert. I think there's been a couple things that have happened this offseason. I think the pendulum swung too far in one direction for Drake London, and I think the pendulum may have swung too far in one direction for Justin Herbert. I understand he is limited on weapons, and you will not be as good as you are for fantasy without guys like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. That's a given. That's a fact. I think Justin Herbert's going. Facts. Justin Herbert's going undrafted in rookie drafts, or not rookie drafts, in fantasy drafts. That feels weird. That feels very strange. It feels like he should at least be a QB2 pick if you don't get one of the guys that you're drafting in the top 8, top 6 rounds or whatever. He's not going to have the weapons. I get it, but he's got Ladd McConkey. They've got an offense that will be efficient. Greg Roman has offensive coordinated Lamar Jackson to an MVP season where Lamar Jackson threw 38 touchdowns. I don't know if it's worth taking the risk as a QB1 for your team, but you could do a lot worse as a backup quarterback in fantasy football, and he's going undrafted. It doesn't make much sense to me. I think the pendulum swung too far in he's going to have no weapons. He's going to suck for fantasy. This is going to be terrible. When Justin Herbert's like a really talented passer and quarterback and football IQ kind of guy, and he's got good vision. He's perhaps going to be using his legs more with this Greg Roman offense potentially. Sure. I wonder if I'm wrong on that, but I don't know. He's not going to be anyone's QB1 drafted. If he is, that's kudos to you. You're calling your shot, but I don't know about that.
Well, let's do this quickly because I want to play a very quick game. You just say yes or no.
Okay.
Would you rather have Justin Herbert in fantasy, Justin Herbert or Brock Purdy this season?
Purdy.
Okay. Would you rather have Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa?
Tua.
Jared Goff.
It's close. Goff. That's close, though.
Okay. Would you rather have Justin Herbert over Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels in their rookie season this year?
I think I'd take Herbert over Caleb Williams. I wouldn't take him over Jaden Daniels, but I think I would take Herbert over Caleb Williams.
Those are the other quarterbacks so far in the ADP outside of the top 10 that are going before Justin Herbert, and you take all of them except for the rookies.
Besides Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams.
I take Jaden Daniels, yeah.
You take Jaden Daniels over Justin Herbert?
Right now, yeah, for rushing upside. For what it's worth, I'd probably take Jaden Daniels over Tua as well, and probably over Jared Goff as well, too, though. Like, he'd probably be up there for me.
Okay, so you rather take 14 quarterbacks over Justin Herbert. I think that's why he's going undrafted. So I think our consensus is that, there are backups that are better than our expectations of Justin Herbert right now.
Well, I'm just saying, that's all I'm saying is that if we're in a 12-man league, you could do worse at your QB2 position. I don't know. Maybe people just aren't taking QB2s anymore if they don't have one of the top 5 guys. I mean, I think if you're drafting Jared Goff, I think you should draft a second quarterback as well. That's what I'll say. I think that's just to have your options there for your team. But I don't know. Your roster spots are valuable, so I get it. So,
but does that mean that you're out on Justin Herbert for this season?
As a QB1, yes.
Okay.
He won't be top 12.
We're in agreement.
He won't be top 12, but I don't know if he should be going undrafted. That's all I'll say. Okay. Next guy we'll jump to here is Kirk Cousins, new quarterback in Atlanta, got all the weapons. I felt really positive until draft night And now I'm like, maybe do I need to be thinking this through more? At least for this season, I feel very good about Kirk Cousins. Wes, we've talked a lot about the Falcons players. We're excited about them. How are you feeling? Are we in agreement here?
We're in agreement. I think Kirk Cousins is he's not a mobile quarterback, and so the ACL, kind of like Aaron Rodgers, where the mobility is not. It was already limited to begin with, so there's no. It's not like Lamar Jackson's coming off an ACL tear. Where it's like, all right, how does that change his? His fantasy value is rushing. Yeah, Kirk Cousins, I think it's going to be just fine. He can be. I know you just said Jared Goff. If he's your quarterback one, you probably should have a backup. But I feel comfortable if Kirk Cousins is my only quarterback to start the season. If I draft Kirk Cousins, he's the only QB I have. I can roll with him for like 5-6 weeks and figure out if I need anyone else. Sure. I think with the upside he has with Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and maybe Drake London, yeah, that's a suitable quarterback for fantasy, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. We'll move on from that. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be really solid. The next guy here we're going to talk about, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals quarterback. I want to hear your thoughts on Joe Burrow first, Wes.
I think Joe Burrow is likely a top 10 quarterback, but I don't put him in my top 5 as of today. I don't put him in my top 5. And I think that's just because he has been beat up a lot, but it's also, again, something that we've repeated on the show. You have to throw 4,700 yards, 4,800 yards. You got to throw 35 to 45 touchdowns and get a couple on the ground. And he's done that, and he's certainly done that, but he's still a bit expensive. I know it's not as expensive as it was last year, but I mean, like, I would be very happy if I walked away from the draft and Joe Burrow is my QB1. So essentially, yes, I'm buying back in, but Joe Burrow is not the quarterback I'm targeting in my draft. How do you feel?
I think I'm a little scared with Joe Burrow. I am really hopeful that this hand and wrist injury isn't something bigger. But I happen to remember back in 2021 when Russell Wilson started out the season slinging it, 3-4 touchdowns a game, and then hurt his hand. And since then, we've seen what's happened. I'm a little worried about this, and it's in the back of my mind, and for that reason, I'm not buying back in on Joe Burrow. This whole injury felt weird from the beginning. The Bengals didn't disclose it. It was like a little strange. Like there was like that photo from like a news network of him getting off the bus, and he had like a brace on the hand, or it was like wrapped up. And I was just a little concerned. It felt sketchy. It felt weird. There's a piece of me that wonders if there's something more. So for that reason, I won't be drafting Joe Burrow this year.
That's an interesting point. That's really interesting. Like so much so that I like Jolton and was like, I have him in a dynasty league. Did I jump ship now? Like, I mean, that's an overreaction of what you just said. But,
yeah, I thought about that the other day.
But I do hear exactly what you're saying because it is the throwing hand, and it's not like he is a pocket passer. So, I mean, if it was like his rookie season, he had a leg injury, and so he didn't run as much, but he still threw his way to the Super Bowl.
Right.
That you make a really good point. His throwing hand was hurt, and again, I'm not targeting Joe Burrow, but I think I'm going to put him on my do not touch list. If I'm going to ponder that more and figure that out over the season, it's a really good point because that then changes Jamar Chase's value.
Yeah, a little bit. We saw Jamar Chase be okay with Jake Browning and have some games with Jake Browning, but it's a little bit.
One good primetime game. I'll give Jamar Chase that with Jake Browning, but like for fantasy, Jamar Chase was not like.
Yeah, it was tough.
Just where he was with Burrow.
I was starting Deontay Johnson in the fantasy championship over Jamar Chase. That was tough.
Good call.
Scary times. Last guy here is Anthony Richardson, and this is a guy that I feel like out of all of these quarterbacks we've just talked about has the strongest case to be top 3 this season. It's a small sample size. Dude was the QB2 and the QB4 in the 2 full games that he played to start a season out. And he was like borderline a QB1 in the game that he got injured in like the second quarter, because he had already rushed for 2 touchdowns in the game and then he got hurt. Anthony Richardson might end up being a my guy, but he's really expensive right now. For everyone wants to find their next like 2020 Jalen Hurts, you know, the guy you get out a year ahead of, and you get him in the 10th round, and he ends up being a top 3 quarterback. Anthony Richardson's still expensive, more expensive than the 10th round, because people are trying to find that, and he's being drafted earlier, and people are reaching, so it's ADP is going up, but he's special, and Shane Steichen is a genius, and this Colts offense should be really good, and I might be talking myself into the draft price. I don't know.
I hear you, and there's something that fantasy football players will do in a year to year, which is take the best player and forget the risk, because you buy in to the player and you risk the upside for a chance to have the best team, because Anthony Richardson should be higher if he wasn't injured. And that's obvious. His injury is why he has fallen even to the round he is now. But we know full well that Richardson is unlikely to be out of the top 5. You know how I know that? Because of Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is the backup in his 4th year with the Steelers. And he was a great fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson, I'm with you on this. I'm not just buying back in, but I'm believing he is likely top 5. Yeah. And maybe Justin Herbert can be his backup on my team. But Anthony Richardson is worth being your QB1 this year. I 100%. Love it.
100%. Let us know, guys, in the comments. What do you think about Anthony Richardson? Let us know which of these injury bounce backs is going to have the best season. Who's going to be the biggest bust? It's going to be a fun time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Make Teddy the Troll smile by liking, subscribing, ringing the bell. Make him do a dance by subscribing to our Patreon and trying to win a James Cook signed jersey this fantasy football season. Also join our Discord. Follow us on our socials. They're linked down below. And we will catch you guys next time. My name is Noah Selby.
And I'm Wes Selby.
And this has been 4th and Troll Fantasy.
Ow!
4th and Troll Fantasy is a production of FQ Media Group and Selby Artistic Workshop.